Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss business, leadership, and friendship. I'm Zach Gable.
And I'm Jared Toach. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. Glad you are with us today. And very glad to have Tad Dickel with us today. Special guest, Dr. Tad Dickel, sorry. And so looking forward to hearing his expertise on all of this that we talk about. He is a local leadership and strategy consultant here in Evansville, Indiana, and also just a leadership expert, in my opinion. And so thank you for joining us today. Very glad to have you here. And Jared, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. 2 cups of coffee in. Good. Some water.
Good.
I might crash later, but I'm good.
Tad, how are you today?
I'm good. Monday morning is a good way to start the week.
Yeah. Very good to have you. So today we are going, first, before we go into that, we did do something different for September's podcast.
We
did. And I forgot to tell you about it. I
figured out Zach did something different for September's podcast. Okay.
I finally figured out how to make our Spotify podcast a video. So I uploaded the video onto Spotify. So you can, if I have done it correctly, you should be able to watch it or listen to it, or both. So we will continue doing that.
Behind the operation.
Yes, it only took, a year and a half to figure that out. I don't think you can do video on Apple Podcasts, but anyway, if you can, we will try to figure that out as well. But on Spotify, you can now watch it as well. So that's exciting. But anyway, let's get started. Tad, you've been doing some research and on your own, I believe, into AI, and so we behind the scenes kind of talked about that a little bit, and I wanted to hear, because I would just start out by saying I am ignorant on AI. I have zero knowledge on it. I know that once a month I see come across our credit card statement a chat GTP charge that our director of marketing uses. Other than that, that's my experience with AI. So love to hear what you have to say this morning, and let's get this conversation started.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be on the podcast, and you've done a great job having some excellent guests in the past, and so it's an honor to be with you today. AI has just been one of those topics where, especially this year, we're hearing more and more about it, and so it's one of those rabbit holes I've kind of dug down into, and feel like there are some really major implications for leaders. One of the things that I think is interesting is that, there are going to be people who are kind of those early adopters and are already like deep into it and have built businesses around AI and have made changes, maybe for their current businesses that have been substantial in terms of their new capabilities. And then there are going to be people who kind of ignore this trend, like maybe,
like me.
Never existed.
Right. Like I think, Zach, do you still have a flip phone or anything?
No, not yet. I mean, not still, but yeah, no.
But, and so I sometimes consider myself more in the middle. Like it's hard to call yourself an expert on something like this that changes every day.
Yeah.
Right.
And so even when this podcast gets released, it's very possible that what we talk about today is totally outdated.
That's just technology, right?
Right. But I think it's a trend that makes us really think about what work in leadership should we be doing. Mm-hmm. And, there's a classic Harvard Business Review article by John Kotter, it's from the 90s, but it's still really relevant. And they talk about, what leaders really do. And so he kind of has this distinction between management and leadership. And so he says, managers really create the structure necessary for an organization to be successful. So they budget, they plan, they direct people, versus leaders really set a vision, they align people, they motivate and inspire. And I think the exciting piece for me with AI, and I've started using it in my business, I've used it in my leadership work, my strategy consulting work, and it saved me considerable amount of time. And so I think one of the main applications we can think about with AI is that it will continue to help us better manage and do work more efficiently, and allow us then to spend more time on leadership. So the human element of leadership, where we're setting vision, we're motivating, inspiring, we're aligning people, we're making them feel valued members of our organization. And that's the exciting piece.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, I'm scared, I'm going to get left behind, my job skills aren't going to be relevant moving forward. And so there is fear. And I think a lot of our companies are experiencing fear, and people say, well, maybe we can just pretend like this doesn't happen, because at some point, at some point, if we adopt this, and maybe my job goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a leader, I think if we can help equip people with new skills, we can help them do more with the resources that we have, help upskill people, then we can spend more time on the things that really matter in our day.
That's very interesting, the point of view that you have, because, well, and I've already stated that I'm ignorant on this, and I think that is where most fear comes from, is just ignorance on a topic and
The unknown.
the unknown, yes, and what to expect. And as you were saying, what if my job goes away? What if my position is...
The what ifs.
Yes. And so I think that's just a natural human aspect of it, is the ignorance and being afraid of that. But so my first experience, if you will, with GPT, is that right?
That's one of them.
Yeah.
You said it right
Okay.
that time. You said it wrong the first
did
time.
It's okay.
So my very first experience with that was regarding this podcast, believe it or not. And someone, I'm not going to say who it was, but someone said, well, you can just go on chat, whatever. You can go on this AI website and they can create a podcast for you. And my instant thought was, no way in a million years.
It does. Yeah.
And the reason is because it feels like it would take away the soul out of this. We do this because we're passionate about it. We talk about leadership because we're passionate about it, and we want to help people. And so one of the things that you and I have talked about, Jared, in the past is authenticity. And I feel like in that instance, my first intersection with this AI was something that would take away authenticity. And so I instantly, my guard just went up, and I'm like, I really don't want anything to do with that, because I want to be authentic, and I want to have, and same way in the workplace, I don't want it to be some fake, false, I love to have a relationship with our team, and I love to have that interaction, and with our customers. And I don't want a computer generated to take away that. So it's interesting to hear your side of it, stating that it saved you time on things in the back end where you can spend better time, quality time on the human side. So I love it already. That's great. Can you give us some examples, if you don't mind, in your business, how it's saved? You said you've used it already, used AI a little bit in your business. Can you give some examples how it's maybe saved you time and helped you?
Sure. And it's funny because I think a lot of times, to go back to that podcast piece, I actually did a presentation a while back on AI for leaders, and we used a Google program that recorded the presentation and then could convert it to a podcast. So creates two personalities that
That's interesting.
discuss the content that I presented and shared that with the group. Just as an illustration of something that can be done.
Was it pretty accurate?
It wasn't bad. I mean, I think the human element is missing because I saw a post, and I'll credit him, but I'll probably misquote him or something. But Vincent Puglisi, he's helped me as a entrepreneurial coach, and he posted something on social media a while back, and it's like, millions of people want to create content with AI, 0 people want to read it or consume it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like that human element that's missing when we utilize AI to create content, or like it can feel fake.
Yeah.
And so going to your question about like examples around how I've used AI, sometimes as simple as asking a question around like, what are some important, like if I'm putting together a training, like I might ask it to put together an outline of a training on this topic. And so sometimes then I can kind of check, what was I planning to already talk about? And maybe I'm in line with it, or maybe it brings an idea that I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, that's good.
I also, in like my background is in qualitative research. So for my doctorate, I utilize qualitative research design, which means instead of like quantitative design, quantitative research where we're, using statistics to analyze responses or some sort of numerical scale, that what qualitative research does is it looks at, what are the themes that emerge maybe from like a conversation with somebody or an interview or like an open-ended response in a survey, and like how do you make sense of that data? And so I found AI to be a really good tool in terms of like analyzing language and saying like when I work with a company on strategic planning, like I might interview a lot of people and say, what do you think like the company's doing well? What are new opportunities that we should consider? What changes would you like to make in this company? What's, those types of questions. What do we need to be concerned about in the future? And so if you ask a bunch of people those questions, you can feed those responses into a generative AI model like ChatGPT or Gemini or one of those programs. And I usually don't use ChatGPT for that because that informs the whole language model. So there are some privacy issues.
Oh, okay.
But I use a private AI tool for that. But then it can say, hey, here's what we see as the major issues that need to be addressed in the next strategic plan. And sometimes it's just in line with what I'm thinking. Sometimes I will share it with like the owner of a company or the CEO and say, this is just an objective view. What do you think? And it speeds up that process significantly rather than doing a lot of manual analysis. And it also, I think, removes some of the biases that we can have as we're looking at our company. So, I mean, that's a use. I use it a lot for writing letters. So, I might say, hey, draft an email about this, and it writes pretty good letters. You can create your own bots where you feed in your writing, so it kind of
mimics your
Okay.
and so it doesn't just sound like
doesn't sound like somebody foreign from you because it begins to learn you. It's I think there's a few Grammarly and some others programs out there that do the exact same.
Right. And I have probably a more formal writing style than some, but then there are people out there that might have much more kind of like informal, playful, like to include jokes, and so it can kind of mimic your style. And then what I do is I use that as a starting point. So instead of like having to start something from scratch, I say, okay, now I have a pretty good place to start. Like I would never just copy and paste that. And
Right.
Like,
Right.
all right, here you go, without first saying, is this really what I want to say? And is this how I want to say it? So those are some examples. I even use it like, so I use like the Google Suite, and like I have it linked with Gemini. And so, one of the hardest things, as you probably experience, is just like scheduling meetings with people. So the other day, somebody said, "Hey, I'm available for these days. Which ones are you available for?" So I can feed that into Gemini and say, which days am I free, rather than like manually looking at every single day and then responding.
And then it will give you,
And so they're just little time savers like that. And I'm moving into more complex work in terms of like generating proposals and things like that for clients, which take a significant amount of time. And so it's something I just keep adding to, but also I think just like there's a deep research feature like on ChatGPT. So if I want to find like academic studies related to a certain topic, like I can say, hey, find like I did one recently, and it was on find topics that link, or find articles that link profitability to effective leadership. Because sometimes as a leader, we're like, does this really matter? Does this help the bottom line?
Yeah.
And there is a significant body of work that suggests that leadership has a major impact on profitability. Right. And so those are just a few examples of ways I've used it. And, I'd be curious, to hear from you, or even like anybody who listens to this, I love having these conversations, because every time I have a conversation, I think, oh, I should be using it for that too.
Yeah.
Jared?
So you brought up a point which then just stimulates my brain to think about other things. So you talked about privacy, because that's a huge issue within ChatGPT, because so the dark side, I should say, of ChatGPT, or any of some of the non-secured models, is that it is learning. And so you put personal information out there, and it begins to form basically a narrative of, if I put Tad Dickel in there and I keep putting this information about Tad Dickel, then somebody else can like search that in ChatGPT or put it, and it's basically learning, and it can create a narrative about Tad, or about Zach, or about Jared, or about your organization or company that may or may not be true, right? So there is like this privacy and concern, and with any business, right? Because if you have our business with customers, with clients, all of that, and you are putting their information out there, there is privacy concerns. So then my question comes, with the organizations and companies that you work with, what types of, have you seen them embracing policies, procedures, practices that surround this use of AI within their organizations, and how closely do they hold it to fidelity? How closely do they adhere to it? Or is it still in that phase with a lot of organizations of like, we know just a little, and so we haven't adopted anything because we don't really want to open like Pandora's box, right?
I'm just
we don't want to
sitting over here taking notes, so that way I know what to do as soon as we get out of this podcast.
It's funny because I think you have just a spectrum of responses to AI. It was funny because I was meeting with a nonprofit a while back, and they said, I mentioned using AI for a letter, create a quick letter. And they said, it is our policy that AI is not allowed in this organization.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
I honestly hadn't heard that type of a stance, and it's sort of I mean, it's sort of a Luddite response. Like we're going to put our head in the sand
Yeah.
and
And I wonder if, I mean, I would assume AI, whether it's on their phones or wherever, it's already being used and they just don't know it.
right.
If you're using Google search now,
Yes.
if you haven't noticed, Google has changed. I mean,
And I love it because you can get ask a question on Google and it gives you an AI answer up at the top that sums up all these. I love that part of it.
It is kind of funny because everybody is using it every day. So I was at a AI workshop a while back, and just maybe this summer, and somebody said, "How often do you use AI? And how many people use it? Once a month?" And some hands go, "How many use it? Once a week? Well, how many use it every day?" And it's like everybody's hand should be up for every day. Like if you are interacting,
unless you have a flip phone.
right. If you have a smartphone and you use a computer, you're using it, period. So to go back to your question about policies, I am seeing some that are utilizing, that are setting parameters. So for example, one might be utilizing only those models that they have like an enterprise account on, and so that the data that is fed into it is secure. So for example, companies that have like a Microsoft enterprise account, they can use Copilot, and then that data is secure. You can do the same thing with Gemini if you have a paid enterprise level account. And so I'm seeing more of that. Because, I mean, I was working with a college a while back, and they talked about, one of the, and I'm not a finance person by any means. Like I understand, how to read a P&L statement and a balance sheet, but I wouldn't consider myself that's not my background and not anything I aspire to do. But I know that a lot of companies are using AI to analyze financial statements and look at trends, and so what's interesting is that that college had said, we're not going to use AI to analyze financial statements because we're concerned about security, and certainly they wouldn't want to utilize just
An open
platform for doing that. And so so I'm seeing more of that. I think probably more in general, companies need to have more conversations about like what data they're putting into it and whether it is secure. I mean, sometimes what I do too is I might feed information into something, but do everything I can to remove any kind of identifying information, like if I were to use ChatGPT. And so I think there are some concerns that we need to be thinking through, but it's still so new that like I would be very surprised, unless you're a tech company, that you would have much of a policy around AI, because I think most people don't even know what a policy should or shouldn't have in it.
Yeah. I know there's a great article from Harvard Business Review I really enjoy. And I couldn't give you the exact name, but I do know it was published in 2024 with a discussion around businesses and how to best frame AI within your company, within your organization, through policies, practices, and procedures. And they listed off a couple organizations who have used it and how they use it, these policies and practices and procedures in their organization. Because I think you want to utilize it similar to what you were saying. There's time efficiency. There's all of these pieces in place, but you have so many components to think about. You have the privacy piece. If you have multiple departments within your organization, how is each department using AI and how is that impacting the other department or someone else. You have a values piece to look at. How is the use of AI impacting the values of your organization? So we know that a lot of organizations, especially airlines, I do a lot of travel, airlines, hotels, all use an AI system for customer service now. How transparent, like how does that either detract or add to your relationship with the customer?
Sure.
How transparent are you on that? And then how frequently does your organization come together to discuss AI in general and its uses? I know our organization has adopted policies regarding AI, just simply from the fact we touch so many things. We touch publications, we touch educational systems, we touch financial pieces, and every part of the organization in some way, shape, or form touches AI, or AI impacts it. So it's very interesting. I mean, personally, I would encourage companies to pursue it and organizations to pursue it. I recently reached out to a nonprofit that I sit on the board, and I just encouraged the board to begin adopting an AI policy, to just begin conversations about it.
Right.
Just to have it in place because it is such an ever-changing field, and it has great potential. Mm-hmm. It holds great potential, and also when used incorrectly, holds great detriment to your organization. Especially when you were talking about some of the platforms that you definitely, that you can feel comfortable maybe putting financials in, but some of them you wouldn't want to.
Right.
Because then that information becomes this narrative that's generated in the open AI world about your organization that you may or may not want disclosed to the whole world, or that could be incorrect or not accurate. So I definitely think that's a big, I think it's something that maybe companies aren't as comfortable, especially smaller organizations are comfortable adopting, but I think it's a very important thing to begin to, if you haven't considered looking at it, to consider looking at it.
Right. And I think leaders need to begin those conversations at their companies in terms of, how could we, how might we use this in a way that could really enhance what we're about as an organization? I had a situation recently. I was traveling and I, put the wrong, a misspelling on the ticket, my name. And so
I've read that.
You've probably done that. It is a pain.
It is. I did it overseas.
And that's even worse.
Horrible.
and so ultimately I was able to get it changed with a bot pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was going to be one of those situations where I might, end up on the phone for hours or, have to buy another ticket. And honestly, the bot was able to fix it. Now, it took a couple iterations because the first time, clearly they didn't understand what I was really asking. And so it was fairly quick, but it wasn't perfect. And I think that's in some ways we have to embrace AI as being imperfect, but it's a learning experience. And as we figure out how to use it better, we're going to, there are going to be new opportunities for us. And I think it's interesting. I saw this article the other day, and it was talking about how even, and this is wild to me. I don't understand it because it removes the human element. But there was a piece about how some pastors have designed bots so that people in their congregation can have a bot to talk to when the pastor isn't available. And I thought that's exactly what we don't want it
Yes. Yeah.
for, because my argument would be that the pastor should use it to make everything else so smooth that he could spend more time
connecting
with the people rather than in his office, I mean, sometimes they end up, having a lot of administrative work or different things like that. But that's the exact opposite of the approach that I would recommend for organizations to be thinking about. Utilize it in a way where you can spend more time with your people. Utilize it in a way that allows you to spend less time in your office, at your desk, away from people. I often find that leaders end up in roles because they were really good at doing something. So maybe they were the best worker. Maybe they had the most expertise in something. Maybe they were, had the best work ethic. They were the most productive person. So then they get promoted. The challenge for most leaders is to actually do less.
Right.
And to do more through the people around you.
Right.
And so
delegate.
Right. And that is a really hard mindset for leaders to break out of. And to finally realize, like, my job is to create direction, create a vision for where we're going, and to make sure the team is aligned with that and is working towards that same vision. Versus, like, I am the hardest worker and I am going to always be here later and longer than anybody else. And so I think that if leaders can harness AI as a tool to allow them to actually provide more direction to the people around them, then they're going to be a better and more effective leader, and the organization is going to be stronger as a result.
Yeah,
100%. I think it's important for organizations and companies to have a leader to set that framework for the use of AI. So you say, like, if I'm going to use this, like, you set it solid in place so that you don't become reliant upon it, that you still empower the people around you. So if they can do a job, or you can empower them to be part of the organization, that you don't lose the heart of the company by replacing something that somebody in your company really could contribute to, but they have no space because you've eliminated their job through AI. But it could be that maybe AI works better or more efficient, and so maybe it makes sense. But it also could be that by the leader putting it in place, they reduce the value of the employee or the value of the person around them. So, like, I definitely think there's a balance for the leader to, like, utilize AI to help you connect, to help you push the people around you forward in the work that you're doing, but also go with caution that you're not also isolating, because everything's just remote.
Right.
Just everything's auto-generated.
And we have to, like, as leaders, we have to step back and say, where do I bring the most value to this organization? And every single one of our employees ideally would ask themselves the same question every day. Because we have choices in terms of what we're going to spend our time doing, right? And if we really step back and say, where do I bring the most value? Then I think we're going to be more effective. And I also think AI can be a great tool where we say, what are those things that are draining to me that really suck energy out of me? And what are those things that really give life to me? Like, there are certain things that I do on a daily basis where I'm like, if only I could do that all the time.
So it's funny because I don't know about you, Jared, but whenever Ted was saying that, I had specific items come to my tasks come to my head. Whenever you're saying that, what do you hate
to
do, and what do you love to do? And the thing that I think I despise the most is listening to my office phone voicemail, because 95% of it is sales calls. And so I usually go about a week and a half before listening to those voicemails. I let them pile up, and and then it's usually delete. So I think AI would be great, in that instance to try to figure out how
You
to
get a summary.
Yes, get a summary of that, and in one click delete the ones that you don't need or want, and then save the one or two.
And there are platforms, 100%. There are platforms out there that will. I know we have a type of platform that does this. That will give me the kind of narrative of what the phone call, and it pops up in an email, and there I have it, and I know whether or not it's something I need to respond to immediately, or if it's something that's junk call, spam call,
which is great. The visual voicemail on iPhones.
Yes. I'm talking about though via it's a Microsoft. It's a Microsoft tool, but
one of the areas that I really like talking about is on employee engagement. And so employee engagement, Gallup has done a lot of research on that topic. And for anybody listening, their website provides tons of articles about this topic of employee engagement. And employee engagement really involves like how committed people are to their jobs. And one of the questions around employee engagement is like, do I have the ability at my company, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? And that's a big piece of engagement. And so if somebody goes into their job every day and says like, there is only a small percentage of my day do I get to do what I really do best, like you're going to have a hard time really being committed to your work. And so like I like to think that everybody is going to have parts of their job that they don't like, right? I mean, but I think the more, like the higher percentage of our time spent on things that we are good at and that we enjoy, we're going to have a better experience every day at work. And so if we could cut out, I mean, maybe it's like an 80-20 rule where like 80% of what I do, I'm really find fulfillment in, I find meaning in. 20%, as long as I can keep it under there, then, I'm going to feel pretty good about my work. And so I just think of like AI being a tool where we can say, what are those areas that are just kind of suck the life out of me? And how could I use AI to bring some more life to what I do?
And that's, as you said that, not to sound repetitive in nature, but this is why I think it's very important for organizations to form a framework around the use of AI within their organization, because then that way you can, like if our goal is for to push our employees like to excel in the areas that they do best, that they work at best, how does that fit our frame with the AI?
Sure.
With the AI use. Like, so does this match? You always go back and say, does this match? Does this use of AI in this particular department in my organization, does that keep to our core values and all that? And if it does, like just like you were saying, it allows or frees up the individual to do something to excel at something that they are great at, thus moving your organization further, quicker, then 100%, then it's a go. But if it doesn't meet with one of those, if it doesn't match up, Right. So once again, I think it's so crucial that companies and organizations do have a framework of some sort in place regarding that use, because you should have something you bump up against all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the things I encourage organizations to think about is their values. Like, what do we value? Jim Collins and Jerry Porras, they wrote another Harvard Business Review article back in the 90s on building your company's vision. And in that, they talk about core ideology. So what's our core purpose as an organization, and what are our values? Like, what are those things that we are unwilling to compromise on? And, and I think, like, if an organization can set those values, then I think you can use AI too to say, how do we make these values even stronger?
Right.
Like I was working with a construction company where like one of their values is safety. And most companies will say like safety is, our top priority. But like this company really preaches and like safety, and they really, they really walk the talk. And so they've talked about ways to, there are tools in place that can actually make sure that different aspects of people's jobs are being monitored, like with AI, to make sure that, hey, all of a sudden something's off balance. AI can detect it right away and alert that person. So it's not like we're trying to catch you doing something wrong. We're saying like, we might have a potentially dangerous situation that your safety is being compromised, and we want to know sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing, like if you're a small company and one of the things that you value is like customer service, like having some conversations around how can AI enhance our customer service, like, not be like, it's funny when companies will say like customers are our number one priority, and then it's like you're on, you call the 800 number and you're on hold for 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
And so you think about like, are there ways that we could utilize AI to have quicker responses to customers, or maybe there are ways to use AI so that your salespeople can be more have more human contact, right? And better understand customer needs and have stronger relationships. So I think viewing AI through that lens of like magnifying values is also like an exciting topic.
It is.
That companies can talk about.
Yeah, and when you said that, it reminded me of a situation here more recently where I had just a very unique flight situation, and I needed to reach out to the company, but I couldn't do it on phone call because I was stuck on a plane, and I knew like there were going to be flights missed or potentially canceled, and I knew there were other flights that I could catch, or maybe even at other local airports that I could catch. However, it wasn't giving me those options when I was trying to rebook. So I needed to get on customer service online. Well, of course, it's a very well-known airline, and usually they have amazing customer service. And eventually they did get to amazing customer service, but I started out with the bot. And I finally said, I need to speak to a customer service representative in the chat. And it immediately, like, it switched over. So something within their system, like it caught it switched it over. Somebody came and they said they were a live representative speaking to me. And I appreciated that because, once again, I was sharing back with them that my experience is not being met. And they were very responsive in the switch. So, and I think that's a great way. And I'm sure they get a report back. I would imagine that's what I was going back to. I'm sure they get a report back that says X amount of customers had to request, a live customer service because their expectation was not being met, et cetera, which then helps them grow as a company or an organization. So it's fascinating. It's very interesting how you can use it to enhance your values. And I appreciated it that they were being responsive via the bot, but it was not what I needed, and it wasn't being helpful. It wasn't going to get me to my destination.
That's interesting. So we've talked about ways that that AI can help businesses, organizations, and I'm just curious for those that I know when Jared, when we first talked, I don't know, a little over a month ago, I guess, about AI, and someone was here looking at the studio, and they asked what we were going to be talking about, and I said AI, and you could just see it come across their face, like, the fear and the, and so I want to discuss that part of it for those that still have yet to really accept that AI is here, whether we like it or not. How can we best protect ourselves, protect our businesses from AI. Because although AI can be a great tool, as all technology is, there's also going to be some things that we need to protect ourselves from as well. I know you guys had mentioned earlier about some privacy issues and things like that on some platforms. And I guess one thing that I see a lot is emails, spam emails that come in that look real, and you kind of have to look at it for a second. It's not like it used to be where it was all broken English and it's very easy to spot. Some of them are, some are real bad, but they're getting better, and I'm assuming that AI is playing a part in this as well. If it's not already, it will be, and so for those that still have a fear of implementing AI into their organization, let's talk on that. On if you guys have any information on that about how to protect your organization, how to protect yourself from potential
misuse of AI.
Misuse of AI.
I mean, I think it's funny because it's sort of like, if you think about like in times of war, there is an arms race, or maybe even like as a prevention of war, there's just this arms race. So like one company or one country is, adding to their arsenal. The other country is adding to their arsenal. And I think in some ways there's sort of this like arms race between like cybersecurity and the spammers or the people that are trying to take advantage of opportunities out there. So I mean, I think there are more and more tools that companies need to think about. And I mean, I've had clients who have been victims of ransomware and have had to make payments because of that. So I mean, this is it's a real
thing.
Yes.
This is a real thing. So I mean, I think there is a piece around like seeking professional counsel in terms of like how do we protect ourselves. So and there are companies that specialize that and do that very well. I also think like training people to recognize cybersecurity threats, like that's an issue that companies need to address, because a lot of times it's people that work in the company that open something that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But then there's also a piece around like the mindset around, technology implementation. And there was a really good book came out in the last few years called Change by John Cotter. And he talks about like really having this, like, we really have this choice of having this survival mindset or like a thrive mindset. And there actually are different, depending on our mindset, like our bodies are creating different hormones based on that. And so if we approach everything from a standpoint of fear or scarcity or threat, then we're going to avoid any of the possible benefits of it too. There's also this approach of a thrive mindset where we understand that there are opportunities out there, and when we're in a thrive mindset, we see the bigger picture. And so I think the way we approach AI is the way we approach a lot of other changes in our lives, and we can either see it from a standpoint of like fear, or like I'm trying to protect myself, versus like a mindset around opportunity. And like there might be some really exciting opportunity out there. And I think we have to have a really ultimately a balanced approach. So yes, we do protect ourselves if they're from any potential threats, but we also are taking advantage of any kind of opportunities that might come from AI. I think that in a lot of companies there is fear because we think like, what happens to my job, or what if I'm not needed anymore? What if my skills aren't relevant anymore? And so, unfortunately, like, putting our head in the sand
Doesn't make it go away.
Isn't going to make it go away.
Yeah.
And so I think like if leaders can have some open, honest discussions to discuss some of those, both fears and opportunities, then I think we recognize that is an emotion people that might be experiencing, and it's an understandable reaction and emotion. There's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that person for having concerns or fear, because in many ways, it's a survival mindset. Like people are thinking, I want to make sure that I can stay in this job until I retire, or I want to make sure that I can provide for my family. And what happens if all of a sudden I can't do that? And so, but I think like ultimately people are going to be better off being open to the opportunities and then realizing that there's going to be a learning curve, and there's going to be a time where they need to upskill. And it's just like, any time in the last, 50 years, like when new technology comes out, it changes how we do things.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of good that has come from those changes. There are plenty of negatives too. But it's sort of like, Kodak's a famous example in terms of like inventing digital photography and yet not wanting to embrace that because it would steal from their, it would cannibalize their film processing side of the business. And so what happens? They go under.
100%. That's a prime example.
And I think the same thing can happen if companies just say like, we're just not going to do this, or we're going to wait and see what happens, or this is all bad. Like you have to take the good with the bad, and mitigate any potential risks or threats. And I think on the whole, if companies can take that approach, they're going to be better off in the long run.
This is jumping topics, but I'm just, sort of, but not. So I'm just curious. So your background is education. And I'm curious, what are some of the things you see, or how do you see AI in education, whether it's in college, high school, elementary, the educators, the leaders within the educational system? What do you see, or how do you view AI and its benefits or uses?
That's
a loaded question.
That's a tough one because, I was, as you mentioned, I was in education, both as a teacher and then also as an administrator earlier in my career. And I saw some changes during that time where, like, when I was first a high school principal, none of the students had cell phones and none of them had smartphones. So like, and then like by the time I left education, pretty much everybody had a smartphone. So like, that's a big change. I also, like, early as a teacher was at a school, and for the first time, all the teachers got a laptop. Like that was a big deal. We also, like, as a teacher or as an administrator, one of the changes was we went to every single student had a laptop. So like I've seen these changes, and I think AI will fundamentally change how we do things. And I think and I've pushed this for, in my time as an educational leader, to say we are past the point where knowledge is the most important thing to impart to people. Because, in some ways, like, the educational system set up, hundreds of years ago, before the printing press, was really designed to say, like, I own the book, so I will teach you what's in the book. And nobody else has the book. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
To a time where now we have access to all the information, and And so like just the recall of facts, which has been an important part of education, is less important than it's ever been. Because instead of me thinking up that fact, like I can look that up in seconds, right? So I think there has to be more of a focus moving forward in terms of like critical thinking, and in some ways like going back to the basics of critical thinking, like how do I know a source is accurate? How do I know that this information is true? Also, I think a piece around like basic, computation is still important. I think a piece around like reading and writing is still important. And I think the last piece that has been largely ignored in education is how do I communicate with people? And there's no standardized test.
There's none
that has been designed to say like, how do I communicate and be in relationship with people and ultimately like be a contributing member of society. And
and I think what you said there, it goes back to that piece though, where in education and even in the workplace, like whether it's education or wherever it is, it's your view. If you are a consumer of knowledge versus you're a generator of knowledge, and it's more of a generative system that's generating. It's generating critical thinking. It's generating thought processes. And when you become generative, then there's this, you have to work with those around you, right? So it's kind of inherent that the system should, if it should, by becoming less of a consumer of knowledge versus moving to the more critical thinking, generating ideas, you're going to need those individuals around you to pair with to generate the ideas, right?
Right. And I think, related to that is like, if you look at any kind of like data on what employers say they need from their employees, like a lot of it is coming down to soft skills. It's not even like we need more, programmers. Like so much of it is around like soft skills of communication, of creativity. And so I think like it is going to be a really hard shift for education to move from the mindset of like our job is to impart knowledge to our job is to like, maybe it's to curate knowledge and understanding and critical thinking.
Yeah.
And soft skills. And that's going to be, that's going to be a big shift. I teach at the graduate level and that at the University of Evansville. And one of the things, I struggle with as a professor is thinking through like, how do I create projects that are so complex that students can't just be like, give me an answer, ChatGPT, right? And how do I,
they could use AI to help generate the thinking,
right?
But it's not. But they're creating something new,
right?
Not something generated by AI,
right? And I've taken some classes recently that have shown ways to like utilize AI to enhance learning, but not do the project, right? And so I think there are like, just like in business, there are people who are saying like, we're not doing AI or I'm not interested. There are probably teachers and professors who are like, no AI is allowed in this class. And I think we have to figure out like, how do we harness the potential?
What's the dance
there?
between the two?
Yeah. And, but it's going to be, I don't have a great answer on that one. That's a tough one.
But I think it's very applicable to the education world, just as it is to the business world. To every company and organization, because if you're wanting to maximize the potential of your employees, of those who you work with or your colleagues, what does that look like, right? Because you can use AI to enhance that, or you can be fearful of it and then risk being irrelevant to society.
Yeah. No, I think there are a lot of parallels in terms of how education can use it. And I mean, I think education often is a slow adopter in terms of like technology, and like, you know, I remember papers I wrote in college where it'd say like only one of your references can be an online reference. You know, like it had to. They wanted to make sure we had gone to the library and used 100%. Like the journal, the hard copy journal or book, and like looking back, like that didn't make any sense.
No.
And we have to ask ourselves at all times, like, these policies that we create, do they make any sense?
Yeah, and I think that's important. Going back to is that there's within, like, if you go back to how you curate policies for your organization, there always has to be this coming together and discussing. Because if you're bumping into things like this, like, are we preventing, does this policy really prevent the innovation? Like, if I'm just saying you have to go to the library and get it, am I limiting what other knowledge this person brings to the table? So, like, I mean, I think that's part of the curation of organizations' policies and things, is like, how are we, what do we have in place that's preventing innovation, that's preventing creativity, that's preventing promotion of good thoughts and ideas for our organization? And then what are we doing that's to unleash that,
right.
You know?
I mean, it all goes back to, you've probably seen the Simon Sinek video, Start With Why, or The Golden Circle. And I mean, I think that's a good model for all leaders to think about, where, like, why are we doing things? Like, what is the importance behind this?
Is it the protective factor?
Yeah.
Or is it the thriving factor?
Right. And I think that previous generations were more compliant at work and in school. And so it's like, they're probably previous generations, if you just said, I need you to do this, just do it, they would probably be more inclined to just be compliant. Versus, like, I think younger generation, and I think this is, you know, I mean, sometimes it can be frustrating as a leader or a manager, but there's good that comes from it too, where you say, like, why are we doing this in the first place?
Yeah.
Does this policy make sense anymore? And I think those are important questions to ask. Like, you know, I was talking with a company, a CEO of a large company, a few years ago, and they said, after COVID, they said, we have moved back to 100% in-person work. And my question was just like, what was the reasoning for that? You know, I mean, I don't, and it's just like, we think that being in person is the best option for work. And like, I think,
and it may be, but why?
Yeah. Like, I think that I asked a question that probably a lot of their employees were asking too, right? Like, why can I not do this at home? Or and there sometimes are very good reasons behind that, but I think we have to communicate the why more today than we did in the past.
Well, and there might be another innovative way to answer, like, okay, here's my why of why we can't do work, like why we're back 100%. But then the question may come back to, well, could it be 50-50?
Yeah.
And so it stops when there's a 100%, like, just because. It stops the innovation. So it goes back to that piece you're talking about, education. You're imparting knowledge. You're imparting a thought to your organization, you're imparting a rule or a policy without any, like maybe somebody actually has a better idea that doesn't hold my title or position.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and it's funny too, because I mean, there are studies that suggest that like a hybrid approach for knowledge workers creates higher engagement. And so like when we make policies, we have to think through like, why am I making this policy? What research, data, what informs my decisions, and how does that really influence how we do work as an organization, how we do work as a company? And I think, I think the other thing with like AI, it can be a thought partner in terms of even thinking through policies like that. I know a lot of people that, I don't do it a ton, but I do it every once in a while, where you can just prompt like, I want you to be my thought partner on this topic. And, here is what I'm thinking. What do you think of this topic? And what holes can you poke into this decision? And what have I not thought through?
Yeah.
And I think using it then as a thought partner could be a way that you really address some of those concerns around like the reason we make certain decisions.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
We said we couldn't talk about AI for an hour. We did it.
I think we did.
Hopefully, most of the listeners are still awake. We haven't.
Well, this is, again, in my ignorance of AI, this has been extremely helpful. So hopefully it's been helpful to our listeners as well. And I still have many questions. I just wish we had more time. But
I think we're all in that same boat.
100%.
We all have more questions than answers, and sometimes I've even avoided these kinds of conversations because it's hard to be an expert on something that's brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, ever changing.
Right.
Oh, it's changing all the time.
And so I think like my encouragement for everybody is just to say, dip your toe into it. Talk to people about how they're using it. Even ask ChatGPT, this is my job. How should I be using AI? Like, like that would be a great prompt for people to ask.
To dip their toe in.
Right. And I've done the same thing. I'm a leadership and strategy consultant. How should I be using AI to enhance my work?
Yeah.
And like, there are some things that I'm doing already. And then there's some things like, oh, that was a good idea.
Yeah. That's neat. Well, thank you, Dr. Tad Dickel, for joining us. And we are going to put his links in the show notes and all that in the description. But it's tadickel.com if you want to visit his website. And I think he's willing to come out and present at your organization and things of that nature and help out. So even does some leadership boot camps, spring and fall, I think, twice a year.
Yeah, we do some workshops related to leadership that are open to the public through University of Evansville and through some other organizations, and that's something that people can contact me about. And also, I do a lot of customized workshops and trainings and facilitation that might be of interest to people. But happy to be a resource for you.
Yeah, awesome. And I've been through the leadership boot camp, and so has 2/3 of our leadership team, and love it. It's very, very good material and very helpful. So thank you, Tad, for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right.
Really
Thanks, Zach
appreciate
and
it.
Jared.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for listening, watching, and we will see you in the next one.